The relentless passing of time is not something you can block, but in video games, you can sometimes block an enemy's attack. Sometimes you can even muster your inner f*** you energy and use a sweet Uno reverse card, also called parrying, to make your enemy regret ever trying to lay a finger on you. This is something I wanted to add to my combat system. The source code for the current state of the project will be available over on Patreon. I had two main goals. Goal 1 was to create a blocking mechanic that would allow the player to block incoming attacks, and goal 2 was to create a parry mechanic where, if timed right, the player could completely interrupt the other entity's attack by stunning it. As I mentioned in the last devlog, the weapon system is using a component-based architecture, where what the weapon can do depends on the components attached to it. So again, I wanted to make these new components as versatile as possible. If I wanted to make a shield that is all covered in spikes, so that when an enemy hits it, they also take damage, I can. If I want to make a bow that is built into a shield, allowing me to fire arrows while also blocking attacks, I can. If I want to make a tome that casts a force field around the player, blocking damage from all directions, I can. So let's talk about the blocking mechanic. As I showed earlier, there are two cases I want to cover. When using a shield, the block is directional, meaning you can only block an attack from the direction the shield is actually facing. When using something like the magic force field, we block everything no matter the direction. I did not want to mess around with setting up any shield colliders and having to check if the collider is between the player and the attacking entity, so I opted for the following approach. Along with basic details such as how far into the animation the block actually becomes active, we can set up blocking zones. These zones consist of a min and max angle measured anti-clockwise. So if we only wanted to block attacks in front of the player, we could set the minimum angle to -90 degrees and the maximum angle to +90 degrees. If we wanted to block attacks from all directions, we can set the minimum angle to -180 degrees and the maximum angle to +180 degrees. I took it a step further and made it so that we can define multiple blocking zones. So if I wanted to block attacks from the front and behind the player, but not above and below, we can do that. When the player is damaged, before the damage is actually applied, we check to see what the source of the damage is. We are interested in the angle between the forward direction of the player and the damage source. Then we check to see if this angle falls within any of the zones specified for the blocking weapon. If so, the weapon can then apply some modifiers, like reducing the amount of damage the player receives or how strong the knockback effect is. Also, when a successful block is detected, the block component sends out an event with all the details so that other components can work with that info, for example, damaging the entity whose attack was blocked. The parry mechanic is actually quite simple. How it works is the weapon has a parry window and the entity has a parryable window. When an entity's parryable window starts, it enables a collider that represents the entire path of the attack. When the weapon's parry window starts, it starts doing an overlap box check in front of the player. If this overlap box detects the collider enabled by the entity, it calls the parry function on the entity, which in turn tells it to go into the stun state, or whatever the entity is supposed to do when parried. For example, we can parry projectiles, and when parried, they are fired back towards the original entity. And it's as simple as that. I hope you guys enjoyed that little peek into how I decided to structure my block and parry mechanics. Thank you so much to all of my supporters and wonderful people over on Patreon. Remember, you guys have early access to this state of the project. And a huge special thank you to all of the absolute mad lads, Cody, Madger, SM, Jake, Patrick, Mike, and Atami. You guys are absolute mad lads, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.